Welcome to another episode of KKC Consulting. We're in for a treat as this time I'm joined by Viraj Ala, who is a student who's done fantastic things all the way from America. Now, Viraj, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for having me, man. Glad to be on here. I know we've done this before, so I'm very happy to run it back and share what I've learned these past 6 months in my journey as a creator and sometimes even just as a person building new things.
And that's honestly like one of the biggest reasons I wanted to bring you back on. I've seen you do some fantastic things, whether it's on LinkedIn, Instagram. I believe your account's just grown to over 5,000 followers so far. So
Correct.
honestly, you've been killing it, killing it, killing it. But do you mind giving the audience a little synopsis about yourself, especially if they haven't seen like the first episode that we did together?
Yeah, totally. So, a bit about me. Our first episode talked about my experience as the youngest intern ever at the White House and my journey going from a non target school all the way back on in high school, going to a T100, getting into these precious places, and actually dropping that and doing content creation full time now. And so, the hero's journey of almost going from something that you wish you wanted and then realizing that it was never the thing you wanted in the first place and being okay with that
I see.
jump as a whole.
Right. Do you mind if I ask you, so what led you to taking that jump? When did you first realize that this isn't what I want? What I do want is content creation and being able to build really cool stuff.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me was understanding that if you want to truly grow, you have to take risks when you're younger. What I mean by that is
Uh-huh.
that you have much more of a stable safety net. Like if I started building things in high school, I'd have the safety net of the fact that if it doesn't work out, I can go to community college and I can go transfer to a four-year university and get a job from there, right? You have stability through that aspect. But if you don't, and you are just starting the same thing at 21 years old, it's much harder for you. So the way I think about it is that the best time to start something was when you were like 10 years old, but the second best time is now. And so one, it was
Right.
understanding that I have to do it now if I want to do it ever. And then two, understanding that if I wanted to
Uh-huh.
be somebody, I'd have to challenge myself in really intense ways. And I had to recognize that as I realized more, that it's not just about working hard, but also thinking differently and thinking smarter.
Uh-huh. So talk to me then. Do you see yourself doing content creation for a long time?
I think it's inevitably going to be a part of not just my brand, but like everyone else's brand because the circles that I'm in, the people I'm
I
talking
agree.
to, they're all creators. And if you want to build something greater than yourself and build something that really inspires people, you have to start with content creation. And I think that's where I see myself.
No, I agree 100%, and I can see it like even for myself. I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you, but I'm currently building an app, KKC
Mm-hmm.
Classroom, where it's helping out investment bankers and consultants or aspiring investment banking and consultants break into their dream careers. And what I've
Mm-hmm.
seen from that is I was doing so much thinking like, should I hire a CMO? Should I give away some equity? But at the end of the day, what I realized is that marketing is the most important. I would say like one of, if not the most important aspect that comes to anything, right? And the best way to
Mm-hmm.
do marketing, especially to my target demographic, is simply by just going viral on social media. It's happened time and time again. I mean, there's a whole stereotype about selling courses and the whole stigma behind that, which is really funny. But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, I
that is
feel
true.
you're completely correct in the sense that no matter what happens, what you can build on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, etc., it's really going to carry you for the rest of your life. And I mean, there's so many other names that I could take, like Ian Korovinski, Brian Uriel. I did a podcast with him earlier last year, and so
Mm-hmm.
many other names where they're doing their full-time job, but content creation is a strong, strong passion of theirs, and they've built such a tight-knit community thanks to that. So then
Interesting.
talk to me about that. Talk to me about the whole content creation side in the sense that you were, I honestly want to say you were at the peak of what a student could achieve. A White House intern,
Mm-hmm.
surely that's like less than 1% acceptance rate, probably
Mm-hmm.
around there. So talk to me about that transition. So you went into the White House, you were absolutely killing the game, and then I do apologize, my voice may sound a little stuffy. I do have a runny
It's all
nose.
good.
But at the peak of the White House, what really led you to saying, you know what? let me try to move into a startup environment and let me try to pursue content creation. Let me take that gap year and really take that risk. Was there a mentor or even like an Instagram reel that's inspired you?
Honestly, it was the fact that, like, sure, I could be the best student I could be, but there's more in life than just being the best student. And you're gonna get caught
Uh,
from being like the coolest kid in college, but when you leave college, you're just another dude. And so I had to make sure that there's a safety net one around me, and that I actually had not just my resume, but there were people who recognize me in the communities that I want to be a part of. And it could be like the startup community, it could be the policy community, which is why it firstly motivated me to do content in the first place. Then also like the personal branding aspect and going to startups. I recognize that in the government, people think very in a very rudimentary way. And if you want to understand how to build something, how to really take something from 0 to 1, the only place to do that is going in startups. And I would always want to do something 0 to 1. I always wanted to build something, have ownership over it, and like truly be the not the face of thing, but truly be like the face toward driving something positive. And even if my face wasn't even there, I just wanted to be the person to have the ownership because I had never got that feeling before. And I think the best place to do that was going to a startup, going into that environment, and recognizing how different the ecosystem was, but being okay with building something from 0 to 1 and not knowing everything you know, but taking that experience in holistic light and just documenting that as well.
that's very interesting. That's very interesting. I feel that's, in a way, really, really cool. Just being able to document your life because, I mean, I have this running joke with my friends a lot where I say that I want to be able to present KKC to my kids as dad lore, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I just feel it would be something really cool. Um, and content creation allows for that, right? Content creation allows for you to express yourself and to be able to post something that just stays there forever that you can hopefully just share one day. Like for me, KKC started in grade 10 when I was a
Mm-hmm.
barber, and then now it's been carrying on for probably like 3, 4 years now. And it's just great to see like what it's grown into. And obviously, there's still a very long way to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially in balancing how to really get viral and famous on these different platforms, which actually leads
Mm-hmm.
me to my next question, Raj. You've done some fantastic things. You've got reels that have done hundreds of thousands of views. Can you tell me your secret to it?
For me, it's just understanding that there are everyone thinks the key to going viral is to have a really interesting hook, having really, really good, or having a really, really good one thing in your video that makes you stand out. But the reality is, there's also multiple things that stack on top of each other, right? If you look at most
Uh-huh.
viral videos that are IRL, you never see a single one that has a cloudy background because nobody wants to look at a cloudy background. They want to look at bright colors with bright expressions, bright people.
Interesting.
You also want to have people who look expressive, people who actually look interested to be there, don't have monotone people who also dress up nice, look attractive, don't look ugly to say. Not to say looking ugly is bad, but people would just show up their appearance and actually take the time to look good and put that effort in. That's also a big thing.
Right?
There's more levels to creating content than I think most people recognize, and I think there's a level of complexity in creating a great video, especially if you're an IRL content creator, somebody who just creates content around your personal brand. That is much more definite. At the end of the day, people follow somebody because, oh no, actually, I'll say it like this: people follow somebody not because they have amazing social proof or they have amazing credibility. People follow somebody and back that same follower or back that same creator because they can see themselves being friends with that creator in real life. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Interesting. Interesting. So when did you first realize that?
Honestly, looking at my favorite creators, like what really made them great, right? The best creators aren't the most outstanding of people, right? They're not the people with the best credibility. The people who have the best and any of the best social proof. They have the best understanding of their audience and make content based on the audience, but also just make really interesting content that people want to know. Again, it's not about how well can you say something that's aligned to your ICP and almost operationalized content. It's about how you can make something that actually sounds interesting that people generally want to watch, which is very straightforward, but you'd be surprised how many people, even for myself, overcomplicate content and recognize that like, hey, it's just
Right, right.
content at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly my number one problem when trying to become viral, become famous on these platforms. Like sure,
Mm-hmm.
KKC has done like 3K plus views, but
Mm-hmm.
again, that's It's not like that happened from one reel, right? It was an accumulation of like 100 plus posts. Anyway, the point that I'm trying to bring across is that for me personally, there's always something missing when I'm creating these reels. There's always something that could be better, that could be improved. And I feel that like I've been following your content for a few months now, and I could clearly see
Hmm.
that you've been improving it on and on and on and on, trying different hooks, trying different techniques. So good on you, man. Good on you for being able to improve in whatever capacity that you could.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I try to.
Now, another question I wanted to ask is that, man, I've heard this from so many different people, but you're absolutely fantastic at networking. And it shows like
Hmm.
the amount of reels that you're able to put out, the people that you speak to from the companies, whether it's in FANG or consulting or investment banking, literally anything, you can speak to them. Can you talk to me about your secrets in networking?
Yeah. I'd say the biggest thing is understanding what your unique value propositions are. And that sounds so corporate to say, but everyone has
Mm.
interesting things to talk about that most people don't think about, right? For example, I have a friend who's let's say he's a bit of a larger man to put it in the big most broad context, right? But he is actually a certified scuba diver. He can scuba dive. I can't scuba dive. I'm like 100 pounds lighter. I've actually swam before in my life, and I've actually done varsity sports back in high school. He hasn't done any of that, but he's a scuba diver, and he also swims faster than me at a pace, which is crazy to think. But it's those sort of things where people don't expect you to have these things about yourself, but they are interesting things you want to talk about. And it allows
Uh-huh.
you to have conversations that people wouldn't normally have and takes you out of that professional mindset and goes into the peer mindset where you're just another friend. If you can get somebody to go
Right.
from professional to peer, that's your gateway to becoming a personable connection. And I think many people don't recognize the fact that, like, people are people. Of course, everyone says that, but the fact is that if you are an interesting person, people want to talk to you. But even more into that, if you're interested in that person, that makes you gain the most value and you are able to develop the best relationship with that person. You don't want to ask questions that seem about obvious, but you want to ask questions that actually make them interested in what their life is outside of work. Talk about their journey, talk about what they do,
Uh-huh.
which is very basic, but to get there, you have to understand that you have to be the first person to put your foot in the door, take your professional mask off and put your personal mask on. Talk about the things that you have a unique understanding of, like being a scuba diver as a larger man per se, being a content creator, being a sriracha sauce enjoyer, things like that.
Mm.
And then
Mm.
that will put you in a more personal light and be on the peer mentality.
Right. Interesting. Well, that's very interesting. And I feel that honestly, everyone that I've spoken to regarding networking, they all mention the same thing that people are working at their jobs for 9 hours a day, 5 days a week, so 45 hours a week. And sometimes, especially in the roles like consulting and investment banking, you're at work more than you're seeing your family. So why would people want to talk about the work even more, right? And it
Exactly.
was really like a light bulb for me. It was honestly like that's actually true, right? Like why would someone only want to talk about work, especially since they're there for so long? And being able to put like a personal twist, as you mentioned, or the mask reference, I feel it's very important because then you really get to become closer to the person. Like any of your friends that you can name right now, obviously the only thing that you guys don't talk about is work, right? You guys don't only talk about exams, don't only talk about school. There's obviously personal aspects to it that come into play, and that's why you're so close to your friend. Therefore, you should apply the same principles to when you're networking as well. Am I right in saying that?
Because at the end of the day, at the end of the people are people, and not even more to the
Uh-huh.
people itself. You can be somebody that someone wants to be around, but if they want to continue developing that relationship, you want to appear to them as somebody who you can talk to about things that matter to them outside of work. That's like a basic framework to think about
Uh-huh.
it. But if you understand what they think about before they come into the office and after, that's what's the most important. Also, talking about your story is very underrated. Come from like a first gen background, come from like a very relatable background. If you had divorced parents or whatever, and if you have some sort of indication that the other person has a similar background to you, like if you have the same ethnicity, if you're
Uh-huh.
like an immigrant, you should really make sure to mention that. And even your cold emos too, because there's a level of that person's younger self on the other side that people don't
Uh-huh.
recognize when they're speaking to people. Because most of the time when you take calls, you're not doing the call because you're interested in talking to the person solely because this student can be useful for you to 5 years in the future. No, you're talking to them because you literally just want to understand what the heck I want to do in my career. And they're willing to help you because they're in the
Hmm.
exact same position.
Well, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it from that lens. But you're right. Most of the people that I'm really close to, especially from the corporate setting, it's always, always, always because there was some sort of connection that happened, whether being a first gen, whether coming from a diverse background, or honestly, like
Mm-hmm.
even small things like coming from the same school, playing the same sport growing up, all these little things. I feel being able to have that level of, I'm forgetting the word, but that level of connection, yes. Being able to have that level of connection from the get-go and being able to put that down, it's really, really, really important. But Viraj, talk to
Mm-hmm.
me about, so I feel there's, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel there's a difference between corporate networking, right? Like especially when you're trying to get internships, full-time jobs, recruiting as a whole, and just
Mm-hmm.
content creation networking. Can you talk to me if there is a difference and what the difference would be between those two?
There's some overlap where if you're talking to someone who's 45 years old and you pitch to them like, hey, I'm a young guy who wants to get into this industry, I think they're like people are still going to help you because they want to help young people. And there's that aspect of the other person on the other side. But if you're talking to somebody who's like only a year older than you, or sometimes a creator who's younger than you can't talk about that. And so you're going to just put them saying, sometimes if you want to get a hold of people who are really busy and don't want to get back as much, what is kind of sad to say, but that's how life is. You can instead focus on the unique value propositions you have as a creator. And so if you're creating content around corporate consulting podcasts, for example, like this one, you can speak to a creator in the consulting space and offer them a seat on your podcast to create that relationship. Again, you, especially when you create relationships in the professional development space, it's much different because you have this intersection where at some point in your career, this person will become useful to you and you become useful to them. But as a creator, there's never often overlap. Most creators are doing things by their own. So you want to create a relationship and create a sense, not a symbiotic relationship, more like a mutual relationship where they're
Right.
getting their story out there and you're getting them on their podcast and their reach that comes out there. And by that, you're able to develop a relationship with them, potentially do business with them in the future and talk with them more one on one about what they want from their business so that you can create a relationship and offer value to what they're doing. It's more about what the exact value you can provide as a person as opposed to the exact value you can learn as a student.
Right. No, I agree with that. And I feel honestly, it's such an underrated topic that you just touched on. The fact that you should always be able to provide some sort of value to someone else. Because the only way people cherish and nurture the connection is because at the end of the day, you can provide something for them. And it sounds very transactional. I mean, especially the first time I heard it, it was really like a big shocker to me. But when you really think about it, like the reason your friends like you is because you make them laugh, which is technically some sort of value there you provide, right? And the same context, although not to the same extent, obviously, could be applied to professional settings where if I'm talking to someone and I have a little bit more knowledge about how AI agents or N8N could really just automate their workflow, if I shared that, they will remember that, you know what, Amar helped me in this category. That's really impressive. Maybe I should keep him close and he might drop some more inside information in the future, right? And I feel people really overlook that aspect. It doesn't matter how small your achievements might be, it doesn't matter what you might know. There's always something that you know more than someone else. Like, no one's 100% better than anyone. That's like a really stupid mindset to have. But there's
That
always
is true.
something that you could just help them out that they're really looking forward towards. And like there's countless examples, none that are coming to my head, otherwise I would have said it by now. But, you know, without without being able to provide value, the connection never really is respected as much.
That is true. That is true.
On that note, I was just going to mention you're currently, and please correct me if I get the pronunciation wrong, you're currently at Leland, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. So talk to me about going into that startup environment. How was the process for recruiting there, and how's your time been there currently?
it's pretty good. They actually, well, I mean, this job came from inbound, and I'd worked with them in the past, so it's going back to the same company that I work with, but now in a different role, where instead of just being
Oh
campus
wow.
oriented, I just would do all their social growth. So it's like a, almost say like a jump in responsibilities. But this role came from just people literally just watching my content and realizing that I was a good fit for the company. And it goes to show the
Wow.
power of personal branding because getting inbound messages about jobs, I got a lot of job offers from what content I do, but the process now being employed is understanding their social capacity, understanding what our valuable social proofs are, and making content that not only showcases the coaches and the coaches of Leland, but also making entertaining content that people just want to learn from, and having content out there that people generally just are tuned in to watch, not because they love the host or the platform, but just because they love watching our videos. I think that's the biggest goal.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, I remember taking a look at Leland's Instagram page. There was a massive jump from before you came to after you came.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very noticeable
Yeah.
jump. So, great on you for being able to patch that up. It reminds me of what I hope I don't get his name wrong. Daniel Mins did for Crew HQ. It really does remind me of that.
Yeah, it does. But
Yeah. But
Daniel's on
on
his
that note,
own different journeys now. I do think he's on a different journey now, which is good to see.
yeah. His stuff is really, really cool. I mean, even the stuff that he's doing for Cluely at the moment, that's kudos to him for all the content that he's pushing out and the platform that he's built. Now, on that
Yes.
note, Viraj, I wanted to ask, do you have any final thoughts that you wanted to share to the audience?
I think the biggest thing is just understanding that if you keep coming back to something and you keep just doing something over and over again, you're gonna get better than it than if you did 30 days ago or a month ago. Same thing, the same thing. But I mean 30 to 30 months. I mean, if you keep coming back to something. And
Uh,
you need to understand that most things in life, even though might seem hard, aren't worth doing. But the things that are worth doing are the things that you are good at and that you can see yourself doing. It's not if you're passionate about it. I think that passion sometimes is a bit overrated in the sense that passions don't always align to society, unfortunately. And if you want to have a great career, you can't. Not everyone's going to be a great basketball NBA player if you're 5'7". You can't go to the NBA if you're 27 and you're 5'8", for example. But
right.
you can still get into the space of basketball, still play basketball, and still be good at another skill that you're also good at. I think if you want to get the most in this world and be the best version of yourself, that comes, I think, I realize now, with understanding what you're the most uniquely talented for. And to find what you're
Uh-huh.
most uniquely talented for, you have to try a lot of different things that are really, really hard.
Right. No, interesting. I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. Being able to try things, try new things, and just see what you're good at, failing as much as you can, especially as you mentioned, we technically have a safety net now, right? And it only gets smaller and smaller as time goes by. So
Mm-hmm.
take advantage of that safety net and be able to just come out your comfort zone, just try everything.
Yeah, I wouldn't say anything differently.
Yeah,
So,
awesome. And then Viraj, with that, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you for
mm-hmm.
sharing all these insights, and as always, it's an honor to have you come back on.
It's an honor to be here, man. I appreciate you again for taking the time, and I'm glad we can actually find it, get it down, even though you're like 9,000 miles away from where you are usually.
Yeah, no, it's really tough. It's really, really tough. I underestimate how tough it would be, but I mean, we'll
Mm-hmm.
we'll get through it. We'll get through it. But thank you so
Yeah, of
much. I really do appreciate it.
course. I appreciate you again, man. And thank
Of
you for having
course,
me, of course.
no worries at all. And then with that, KKC Consulting viewers, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. Please feel free to sign up to the kkcclassroom.com waitlist. The website's now live and The app developer team has been doing awesome stuff on it. So please feel free to check that out. And until that, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much.
Peace.